We are absolutely failing at communication. If you think for a second that the billionaires running the Trump administration are going to do a thing to improve the lives of average people, then I'm sorry, but you've just been lied to. You've been taken for a ride.
The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for. But hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright.
Kamala Harris's loss in the 2024 presidential election to Donald Trump has generated a lot of reactions. But one of the narratives that I see most often about this election is that it somehow represents a death knell for liberalism, that the voters in electing Donald Trump have somehow rejected fundamental liberal principles like the rule of law, peaceful transitions of power, civil liberties, and economic freedom. With Republicans trending away from liberalism as a party, as many of its up-and-comers embrace ideologies like national conservatism, and with Democrats, at least with how it's looking at this moment, completely out of power across the federal government, it really makes you wonder what's left for liberalism. So let me just start by saying that liberalism doesn't just mean member of the Democratic Party, right? It's an ideology with an emphasis on liberty that really got going during the Enlightenment with philosophers like John Locke, Adam Smith, Montesquieu, and Rousseau. They all had their own ideas, but they also all contributed to the intellectual foundations of what we today call liberalism. In a world ruled by and for kings and emperors, they brought radical ideas of self-government, representative democracy, and inalienable rights into the political conversation. Liberalism fundamentally overturned the old political order. Today, a huge amount of the world's most rich and powerful nations have institutions that fall somewhere under the broad liberal umbrella. Even incredibly repressive and authoritarian nations will pretend to have elections and be relatively free. Royal autocrats back in the day didn't have to do that. Their authority was derived directly from God. That's how much liberal ideas have shaped the world. Even illiberal dictators have to pretend to have a popular mandate. I'm spending time talking about this because I think liberals have forgotten our roots. Liberalism has been revolutionary. It's about making change that makes people more free. And even today, some proposals from very old liberal thinkers can feel shockingly modern. American founding father Thomas Paine was basically calling for a UBI, Social Security, and a land value tax back in 1797. His pamphlets were also absolutely instrumental in generating popular support for the American Revolution and against the king. While I believe that this particular campaign was lost off the back of people feeling unhappy with post-COVID high prices, since every governing party in a developed nation facing an election this year lost power, I think it does not help that for a while now, let's be honest, the Democratic Party has put a ton of rhetorical focus on preserving our institutions in an environment where a ton of people feel like the system does not work for them. In exit polls, Trump voters said that the most important reason they had for voting for him is that he could bring needed change. Yes, it is absolutely true that we should be worried about preserving our democratic institutions, and we should be worried about threats to them. But the response cannot be, it just can't be, to sound like we're the party of the way things are in an environment where so many people are demanding change. So the bad news is that we are absolutely failing at communication, not just in terms of our general disposition, but in terms of who we're actually reaching. Conservatives have run roughshod over social media for years. If you're a conservative and you're watching this, you've likely already proved my point here with a comment and a dislike. Thank you very much for the engagement. But seriously, there's an entire well-funded apparatus that produces radically ideological conservative content and launders it into ostensibly non-political spaces. More people than ever are getting commentary and news from social media, and we just simply cannot allow that space to continue to go uncontested. We don't have billionaire funders like the Daily Wire or foreign governments supporting us like the national-conservatism movement, but we do have one thing, which leads me to the good news. And the good news is that our solutions are just genuinely better. If you think for a second that the billionaires running the Trump administration are going to do a thing to improve the lives of average people, then I'm sorry, but you've just been lied to. You've been taken for a ride. It's a terrible bait and switch that they've pulled, but take tariffs, for example. The last round of steel and aluminum tariffs in the first Trump administration cost $900,000 per job. A steelworker makes a lot less than $900,000. So where does the rest of that money go, you might ask? I'll tell you, it goes to propping up the profit margins of lazy executives unable or unwilling to actually participate in capitalism. When the Trump administration takes their corporate welfare policies economy-wide, the impact will not be worker protection. It will be higher prices and a theft of several $1,000s per year from every American family's bank account, redistributed to a very rich man's third vacation house. We need to be telling people that we oppose these things, but framing our opposition in such a way that we're not always on the defensive, constantly on the back foot, limping around the ring, begging the referee to step in with a wonky fact check. We need to be on the offensive, provide an affirmative vision of the future. Don't just say we're going to protect the institutions. Say, here's how the institutions are broken, and here's how we're going to make them work for you. And every step along the way, we will be opposed. We will not always win. Before Obama 2008, there was Bush 2004. Liberalism has failed and has been failed before. The French Revolution started by declaring the rights of man and citizen and ended with terror and tyranny. The revolutions of 1848 were crushed by the forces of monarchy and reaction. Jim Crow laws entrenched themselves in the United States after the end of Reconstruction. But liberalism also built this country. Our nation begins with an idea so fundamentally liberal that Thomas Jefferson had to steal it from John Locke: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Liberalism won the American Revolution, liberalism won the Civil War, and liberalism abolished slavery. Liberalism won 2 world wars, rebuilt Europe, and lifted millions of people out of poverty at home. Liberalism supported women's suffrage. Liberals have been central to the fight for civil rights and civil liberties, and liberals provided the leadership that put this nation's flag on the moon. But none of it came unopposed. Every step on that long, winding path has been opposed. In the words of Robert F. Kennedy, the cruelties and dogmas of this swiftly changing planet will not yield to obsolete dogmas and outworn slogans. It cannot be moved by those who cling to a present which is already dying, who prefer the illusion of security to the excitement and danger which comes with even the most peaceful progress. And that's why liberalism isn't going away, because we still have work to do, because we are not finished yet. Because the truth is, as long as we value freedom, real freedom, for as long as we believe that America is actually about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, liberal ideas will remain relevant. For as long as we want a government of, by, and for the people, liberal ideals will remain relevant. For as long as the law makes it more profitable to keep people in slums and on the streets than in a house, for as long as special interest groups demand handouts and privileges at the expense of average people, for as long as there are people profiting off of our stagnation and decline as a nation, for as long as media companies tear at the seams of our society by algorithmically maximizing for misery and hatred, liberal politics will have a place in our lives. Ted Kennedy said in another time where things were arguably looking much darker than they are today, that it is the shaping impulse of America that neither fate nor nature nor the irresistible tides of history, but the work of our own hands, matched to reason and principle, that will determine our destiny. There is pride in that, even arrogance, but there is also experience and truth. And in any event, it is the only way we can live.
And someday, long after this convention, long after the signs come down and the crowd stop cheering and the band stop playing, may it be said of our campaign that we kept the faith. May it be said of our party in 1980 that we found our faith again. And may it be said of us both in dark passages and in bright days, in the words of Tennyson that my brothers quoted and loved, and that have special meaning for me now. I am a part of all that I have met. Too much is taken, much abides. That which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. For me, a few hours ago, this campaign came to an end. For all those whose cares have been our concern, the work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die.
Hi everyone, this is Ryan. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know that this is a lot different than the stuff that I usually make, so I was a little bit unsure about releasing it. Hopefully some of you out there have been able to get some value out of it. Anyway, don't forget to do all the interaction stuff and, share it with a friend or something. See you next time.